The hip-hop writer is a creator, composing understanding words of cultured brilliance, powering a rebalance of the elements equally. Pages of rejuvenated reaffirmation, simply the almighty leadership of enciphered craftwork that stands to build through any confrontation born to be. Yet his daily duty is as a journalist that questions properly and uses his ears to filter the real. And as the art decays by dilution, he concentrates the best again and again, exposing it in the print. Today's journalist and tomorrow's historian, he listens to share. Here is that necessary attempt executed again and again and again. This is the Power Right Show on S.STREET Media. This is your brother, the lone low life with the home sewn garment, the Boricua with the build, the true and living God stepping the score, Sunya's Allah, a.k.a. Skillustrator Low. And we're on S.STREET Media, the evolution of media, where every intrigue will have its own show. Every incredible thought will have its own episode, and every timeless insight will be archived. And as I always say, this is about my element of hip-hop, what I like to call the writer of art on art and science on music. The only show in history on this hip-hop writer element that I, a veteran of over a quarter century, helped to pioneer, right? So that means when people were doing it, I was saying it was going to be done. You know what I mean? And then I did it. You know what I mean? Creative works that also give you the science and the detail and analysis of the music, though. You go try to find a nigga that do that. You know what I mean? We got some books out. A lot of literature and literature forthcoming, though. So the literature that's out now, I have The Filtered Real, Essays from the Invisible Renaissance. You know, I call this era that we are in loaded with so much music. To me, the era that has the most qualitative quantity ever in the history of hip-hop history. I call it the Invisible Renaissance. You know, a lot of people don't see it with the veil of pop being so horrible, so disgusting, so putrid, so banal. But it's there. It's right underneath the you know, you take it off. There are some tips of the iceberg, right? You might trip up and stab yourself with the needles of Griselda, right? You might trip up on the ice cubes on the terrain of Rock Marciano. But the entire iceberg that is this music I've been covering, and starts to be covered since 2010 in this book called The Filtered Real, Essays from the Invisible Renaissance. You can get it emailing me, sunyas97@gmail.com, or DMing me on Instagram at Sunyas, S-U-N-E-Z, for autographed copy, right? And I got much more. I got much more than that, you know what I mean? I also have the Reel of 2020 ebook. That is an ebook if you want to see a complete collection, a new style of recapping the year. You know what I mean? Not recapping the year by just saying what I thought was the best, because there's too much stuff I like anyway. That'd take me forever to shuffle through. You know what I mean? Then I pick 10, and then there's 20 more, and that's no good. But what if there was a book that showed you the entire universe, though, of all of the great music that was out there? As much as I could put in, as much as I could do to the best of my ability. And really give it detail and categorize it in such a way where you could see how all these different categories of styles of MCs and artists overlap and become this great world that I call exposed as the Invisible Renaissance, and make it visible for you. So that book is out as well, hey, that's it. And that's it. I got a new book coming out, too. 2 books will probably come out by the end of the year, but when we get closer to them, then we'll talk about them. Some quick commentaries, man. We just released me and DJ Toshi's Classic Storm Radio, which I've hosted for years, since 2016. We just released our newest episode, 297. Got Neek the Exotic and Smiley the Ghetto Child. You know what I mean? So Neek the Exotic, you know, a veteran expert. You know, that's like expert stylist. You know what I mean? A great album with Large Professor. Anything with Large Professor you're supposed to buy. And anything with Neek the Exotic you should buy. So we talked about that great album in depth. And Smiley the Ghetto Child, you know what I'm saying? Survived the shooting, got on, and we built, you know what I mean? So he's an inspiration, you know what I mean? Smiley the Ghetto Child. And a very soulful album that he gave us. So talking about those albums, go to DJ Toshi, classicstorm.podomatic.com. Okay. Now, I always let you all know to remind you of the last episode 101. We had Ness, You know, Ness, who has an album out with Baby J called 21st Century Blues. Ness, one of the great revolutionary rugged MCs since the 2000s, you know what I mean? Out of the dark ages, the 2000s, into this era. So we went through his whole career with A-Alikes, the records with A-Alikes, working with Dead Prez, all of this stuff. The avant-garde work with Weekend Money, you know, challenging questions, and he answered all of them. His documentary he did that a lot of people don't know about. We talked about all of that, you know what I'm saying? And just continuing the entire legacy of covering that brother. Peace to Ness, you know what I mean? Go to Nestagram, N-E-S-S-Tagram, right? And follow him there, and go to look for 21st Century Blues on Bandcamp, and you'll find a link. You know what I mean? Hey, real quick, man, since we're talking about the things that we're sharing and stuff, and I got some warriors as my guests today, so it's only fitting that I let everybody know about my own program that I'm teaching. I call it Concentrated Supremacy. Okay, it's a martial arts program to be an introductory kung fu martial arts program to individuals that don't know how to pick a school, or individuals that just want to be martial artists, but they don't have the money to do all that school stuff, or they're not able to go to all this stuff. So I teach live in Staten Island or in Harlem on the weekends. And I also do Zoom training sessions. So if you're out there, I got brothers out in Chicago and other states and stuff, and we train them so they get their game up if they weren't on point. You know what I'm saying? And let me tell you something. I came up with the word concentrated supremacy as a joke. You know, peace to my man Rim. It was really, you know, we're two short brothers, so you know, I say that you know, we're not really short though. We're concentrated supremacy. You know what I mean? So, so then I said, you know what? Let me name this that. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people, they talk a lot of shit. You know, they're not willing to defend themselves. But what about those that are shorter, the smaller? How do you defend yourselves? You know what I'm saying? I mean, if everybody was my height and weight, they'd be a lot more humble, I would think. You know, but that training is out there. You know what I mean? So contact me, Sunez97, S-U-N-E-Z 97 at gmail.com. And I'll give you the rates, what we could do, what you know. Let me know what you do, and we'll do it. And if you go on my Instagram, you see some clips of me doing some moves and doing some fly shit. So that way you know it's real. You know what I mean? It's real. They're teaching you how to fight, though, not how to dance and shit like that. You know what I mean? They got B-boys for that. But I'll tell you, because I always see a lot of B-boys, and I'm like, man, he could really fight if he used those for fighting. You know what I mean? Like, but I want to talk about a tweet that I made, because I usually don't talk shit, but I like to talk shit occasionally on a tweet. And I wrote a tweet here because some people, you know, I mean no disrespect to any writer. You know what I'm saying? My 100th episode was with the legend that inspired me in hip-hop. You know, not Amiri Baraka and Miguel Pinheiro, those guys that are outside of hip-hop, but Bones Malone. And I wanted to honor him and honor what I was trying to do, because he was the one that was writing creatively in hip-hop magazines. Indeed. And I took the next step and started to write creatively in technical pieces. You won't find people write reviews the way I write them, with poetry and prose blended in like that. I made that shit up, you know? And I had a tweet that, you know, some people they might feel uneasy about it. You know, I don't really give a fuck. But I'm going to read it out here so we have it on video that this is true. There's nobody that's done this. I said that the absolute best hip-hop journalist today would define the musical analysis in hundreds of articles and key books. People, if you want to talk shit to me, make sure you have the hundreds of articles, okay? Because I have over 400. Make sure you have the key books, because I have 3 and way more coming. And then name entire era covered. I've named this era. That's why S.STREET, that's why all these brothers roam streets. That's why everybody in their rhymes, I heard Griselda use it. They go, oh, the Renaissance. Where do you think they got that shit from? Be the definitive interview of artists, though. If all of these artists that we love, though, who talk to them? You can't find anybody talk to them. You know what I mean? And make their work an actual creative element of the culture, from stanza page to verse song. I said, who else but? If you're trying to fill your name in there, you're just fucking around with me, right? Anyway, we'll leave it like that, though. So if you have beef, you know, come see me. You know what I mean? It's not, because it's like, who else? You know what I mean?
I seen the way
right?
you throw with the sword. I don't know.
You know what I mean? And I'll give you a weapon. You know what I mean? I'll give you a weapon. I'll give you a pen. You could go right there. But last but not least, before we get to my guest, though, because it has to do with the music, I shared so much about it, though. Remembered in Perfection to one of my favorite bongocero and band leader I've ever heard, Roberto Roena. I've always loved his music. After I collected as many Lavo and Eddie Palmieri records, I was diving into everything in Fania. You know, like, wait, who was the bongocero for Fania? Who was the conguero? Who's Ray Barreto? Then you get Araberto Santiago. Then you get this, Ismael Miranda. Then you get this. And Rowena was like, yo, I just love bongos. You know what I mean? And I know one of my guests will definitely understand that. You know what I mean? And Rowena was a great dancer. He was a great... He doesn't get the respect as a musical mind because he put the funk so good into the music that those albums, name 1, 2, 3 until 9, by the end of those numbers, he really was doing something different with the funk than the typical homage tracks he was doing in the beginning. But a great legacy, and your collection is not marred by collecting any and all albums. I know, because I have all of them. So Remembered in Perfection, Roberto Roena. I did get to see him live once when Fania All-Stars went to MSG in like 2000 something.
Gangster.
So I got to see Rowena and all of them, and I got to see him do a bongo solo and everything with the sticks, you know, because he usually played with the sticks. Oh. So it was awesome, you know. So and a lot of that music has the feel of hip hop. Like I always say, salsa is the first urban genre of New York City. You know what I mean? And not hip hop. And on that note, we get to my guest. I got to build with them during the pandemic when we were all locked up and couldn't go anywhere, and we didn't know anything, and we didn't research any of these people that are now quite fraudulent, you know what I mean? And we didn't research, RNA capsules and genetic therapy and gain of function research. We didn't know anything about that, you know what I mean? We didn't know about Fauci's legacy, you know? So, I got to build with my guest, Billion Man Rebellion, consisting of Dantique and Constant Flow, two of the great MCs in the universe. You know,
thanks a lot.
There's the intro. There it is. There's nothing else.
Great looks.
You know what I mean, guys? I want to go over some of the things that I had on the Toshi's Classic Storm Radio. You know, just for the audience, because they may not want to go all the way back and look for that episode. Which, by the way, if you're a stickler like me, it's episode 276, you know. But I wanted you guys to give some brief origins, you know, so they get an idea of how you guys united, where you're from, you know.
All right. I'm from Brooklyn, raised in Brownsville, born in Bushwick. I moved to Jersey City in 1994 and met my brother CF. My name is Dantique, by the way. We all BMR, but I met him rapping, like, first day. No high, no none of that shit. Yeah. He walked up, like, we was already in a cypher with my boy Sire that passed away. That was his partner.
R.I.P.
Like, they were already a crew, and I didn't know them. I just met them that day at school, and we was in a cypher. He walked up, started going, and we've been rocking ever since that day.
That's a fact. So from 94 till 2021.
I mean, that's
pre 9/11, post 9/11, pre-pandemic.
You know, I always say that's one of the reasons why this era of the music is so refined, because the A&R hasn't been some mountain climber who plays the electric guitar, which I've seen him.
Yeah.
But
I've seen him
it's
too.
really time itself. Time itself has been the best A&R for so many artists like yourselves, that you guys have been together. You know, a lot of the stuff that people would call a demo, you guys could scrap and make it better. Word. You know, so we hear your best material, you know.
We did a demo. Like, you know what I'm saying? We was in that time when we had to do demos and shit. Yeah. So we was
2-inch real time.
Absolutely. You know, in the time, I guess I want to pick up. I just wanted those brief things so we get like that idea. You know, there was so much that we said on that Classic Storm radio episode about the Static Files, which is really like your official debut. You know what I mean? A great album, one of the best of 2020.
Thank you so much.
It's one of those albums that like people get in this era now. Albums don't get lost because others are better. They get lost because there's so many artists that come out. Yeah. So you have a combination of artists that they might throw out a lot of great works. You know what I mean? Like, you know, I interviewed Ras Fresco, and he made a whole series of stuff, and they were all really great. But then there's like guys that they're really just flooding, and it's not, the quality is not great. You know what I mean?
It's more artists than fans.
Yeah,
now.
or it's diminishing slowly. Like, you know, like
just content to put out.
It's hard
content.
to catalog people that are diminishing before my eyes. You know what I mean? Like, you could tell that they could have worked harder on it. You know what I mean? But Static Files is so concentrated, and that's why I think, like, you guys really give, like, you guys give the orange juice, that old orange juice in the frozen can. You know what I mean? Like, it's all clumped out, like all the details, the
Pope and all that.
The more you listen to it, the more you get out of it and stuff. I really implore people not just to listen to that episode, but really go back, like, enjoy yourselves when you go on their Bandcamp, billionmanrebellion.bandcamp, and listen to Static Files. Listen to Ghost Lineage, this new album we're going to get into detail about, because the skills are great. And we talked about everything that came up to Static Files and what we're doing. But some of the things I observed in that time, you know, Dante, you're much quieter on the social media. You know what I'm saying? You're not, you know, you throw some stuff and some family stuff, and it's cool. And, of course, BMR stuff has great videos. You guys really get on your grind and give us visuals and stuff. You know what I mean? But I see you guys as the epitome of warrior music, and it's become a trend lately that I'm just not in the mood for anything else right now, so I'm talking to the warriors. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And during that time, especially you, Constant Flow, the stuff that you were putting on Instagram the entire year, you know, for me, and I know it means for many people, were totally inspirational to me. You know what I'm saying? They were like, you know, I'd be picking up weights, and I'm either doing Spit Gems or I'm doing Constant Flow when I pick up the weights. I'm like, you know, if these guys are doing it, they're doing it every day. They're going intense.
Yeah, I mean, I
fury.
We put boxing in this shit. Like a lot of things, I had an internal fight that I had to manifest in physical form, and from the old traditions of Puerto Ricans that just, you know, box. And plus, I wanted to make sure that my showmanship was prepped and to be ready for this, whether pre-pandemic, because I was already doing this before the pandemic.
Absolutely.
But even during the process, I caught the COVID and shit, and I pissed that shit out because of the shit that I was already used to. You know what I'm saying? I saw what was history repeats itself. I heard about the Spanish flu before. I heard that it came out of Kansas at some military barracks. What's not to say that 100 years, some shit like that similar would occur. And look, it did occur on our watch. Actually, prior to that, after the Static Files, after the finalization of the recording of Static Files, right? We started working on additional songs. And I told Teak, I was like, yo, we better work on more shit. Not that I anticipated something would occur like that, but we were getting older in age, and time was of the essence. So it just happened to fall within that kind of stuff that we already had another album in the clip. And while the pandemic was happening, Teak advised me prior to that, like, if you really want to be an independent artist, you should get your own shit. Not that he didn't want to record me, but that I should have stuff ready. And so I purchased stuff during the pandemic too, so I could record vocals out of my crib, so I could just bring them to him if we can't see each other.
So when you get the idea, it's like, oh, I got the idea. I'm holding on to it. I'm rapping it to my phone. No, nigga. Go
in the booth.
You
Go
give
get
a
your
more
little thing, and you
perfected
could just
version,
knock it out and see if you like it or not, and then come to my crib and do it.
And then you know, I was reading a book called The 7 Daily Habits of Highly Effective People, and it was talking about, instead of being independent, be interdependent, so we could operate autonomously, as opposed to like BMR as a legion of chiefs, of caciques. You know what I'm saying? And they ain't no real main cacique. It's just all of us operate in phalanx, and we all have to operate at the same type, but we all know our function. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I want to do different. I didn't want to be like, I'm the leader of BMR, because I was always being in the spotlight through technique and stuff like that. My main thing was like, nah, my bro is equally as dope as I, so let's both be where we at, and then we build a team on that type of mutual respect for each other. You know what I'm saying? Ain't no alpha males in our pack. We all alphas and shit like that. We all reach Legend Black, which, you know what I'm saying, we was talking about before, but the fighting, coming back into that.
Yes.
If you look at all the islands in the Greater Antilles, right? Jamaica is land of the springs and valleys or whatever. Cuba is land of abundance and resources. The name of Quisqueya is mother of all lands, and Haiti, mother of the mountainous region. But only Borinquen is land of the valiant, brave Lord. So we come from a place where already warriors were bred. And you intermingle that with African Mandinga Wolof warriors and the Spaniards who already went through their own mixtures from Andalus and all these other different Moors, groups and shit. You already know. We come from a warrior blood, and that just activated during this period. Because it was already there. It just came into what it was already meant to be there for.
Right. Because, and I'm making this point known because, obviously people know that I teach at a law school in Mecca. I teach, I've been teaching my peace course, political education and civilization enrichment. You know what I mean? And the reason that was named that, political education, was how to deal with this outside world. That was why we named it that. Word. And civilization enrichment, the science of everything in life. So my whole life is really teaching a warrior ethos to people, and of course, never being that hypocrite, living that out. That's what I live. I can only teach what I live. You know what I mean? And the stuff that you were doing on the Instagram, though, was just really inspiring, though. It was what we needed. When you go back to see what are the things that help people most, it's really the immune system being strong. It's really going out there and getting your, activating that vitamin D. Yeah. You know what I mean? And really having no fear. Being fearless and having complete confidence that whatever you don't have, you can actually build up. You know what I mean?
I'm a type of person. I know people are sometimes against vaccination. If that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. If you don't,
absolutely.
You don't. It doesn't matter to me. You know what I mean? Like, free choice is what it comes down to. But my main thing is like, before you even do that and you resort to other means of trying to up your immune system externally, look internally, look and connect to the true self, because there's a lot in that when it comes to you being quality. Quality output happiness is an inside job as well. A lot of things that we're dealing with, like mental health, and a lot of, we were going through that period where people had never been through before. And, we seen 9/11. We come from that generation where we seen buildings dropping like 200,000 people incinerated in front of our eyes. And landmarks that were there we thought would never be, because we thought would never be taken away from us, because of the fact that they are something that was part of our everyday scenery, that became part of our, cultural background. Scenery and shit like that. So seeing that go away and then prep me for whatever the whole pandemic was. And I wanted to show people like, yo, let me be a rock for y'all, so y'all could not follow me, but there's an example that we all should follow to be strong during these times for the generation to come.
Absolutely. One of the things that I saw that you took advantage of is this concept, because I teach my students how I live. And one of the things I say is that wherever you live, you make your own laboratory. A place where you can read, write, and train. Read, write, train. You know what I mean? And now that you made your own studio setup and stuff, I feel like that exploded, because you also throwing a lot of bars, you were throwing a lot of ideas, and it became a very fertile time for you.
Yeah, I was I read somewhere that during the pandemic or plague outbreak, many centuries back in Europe, Isaac Newton went and quarantined himself, or was in isolation, and that's when he became his most creative. So I took the initiative at this time to just create more, because the times are kind of require for us to be that way. You know what I mean? It's like some people fold and they don't come up with output. Me, I was just like, shit, I gotta just create, because there's so much stuff that I'm thinking about. I was going through so much internal conflicts prior to the pandemic.
Right.
And things that we were already speaking on record, like reasons, infertility issues, all types of other issues that people can't talk about. Right. I always been a person that went through unique situations that I had to deal with by myself and look within in order for me to become a better or whole human being. Because sometimes when you go through shit that no one could ever go through, it can do it can allow you to create that ultra empathy that's needed in order for you to guide other people who don't know who to go to when they're in that time of crisis and shit like that. That's why the pandemic was really nothing to me. I was like, I've been through multiple pandemics within my own life. And you know what I mean? And that this is only gonna allow me to create. So me and Dontique was talking through the pandemic. We were supposed to drop have an album release for Static Files on March 22nd at this dive bar, which was pretty famous in Jersey City, called Indio's, which was the last kind of Puerto Rican dive bar there, because we live in a place that's only 5 minutes outside of Manhattan. So gentrification is already kicked up super speed, and everything is gone mad developments all over the place. New York ain't only going vertical, but it's going out. Right. And it's encompassing Jersey City into this whole Unicronish eating of planets, or fucking the Death Star pulling in the Millennium Falcon, and me and him, we like fucking in the Millennium Falcon, like Han navigating through an asteroid field, hopefully trying not to get caught up.
Right.
But
especially downtown.
So they put in the and we thought it was fitting to rap at Indio's, because Indio's was an Afro Boricua who actually liked our music. He was an elderly person, part of a generation way before us, but he was accepting of our music, where other Puerto Rican communities were like, nah, you know what I mean? It's not reggaeton shit. It's not.
Right.
They not trying to hear people that actually go to a biblioteca and read about Afro Puerto Rican history and Taino history and shit like that has some sustenance, that is a build upon the New Yorican community across the water. Because that's we the keepers of that tradition. And so we was not given opportunities like that. But Indio was like, nah, fuck with y'all. And right when we were going to perform there, you know what I mean, they put the curfew in, and that stopped us from doing the album release or whatever. The album still came out. Dontique was actually more instrumental in, because I was a little bit like, I don't know. And he was like, nah, we going to go through with it anyway. And so we came out with the album as planned and shit like that. But we started to like kind of analyze shit, and we like, you know what I'm saying, we need to talk about what's going on in these times, because we saw all types of different genres from the 90s hip hop onto what's going on now. And we had a deep discussion for like 5 hours, not 5, but like good 2 hours. And we was like, yo, I was watching Tiger King at that time and shit. And they were talking about, and then I started reading about tigers and animals and lions and big cats and jaguars particularly. Being of some Arawak ancestry, jaguars resonated with me as a spirit animal. But I was finding out that a lot of these cats, they have a ghost lineage that they can't trace them to, like a missing link situation. And I was thinking about like, yo, there's so much shit that people have a missing link situation for, like infertility. Imagine you can't have your kids. You got to reconfigure what your idea of legacy is. That's a ghost lineage. Imagine having Arawak ancestry inside of your blood, but those people are decimated. You can't speak their language, and you don't know their real customs and traditions, but you carry that in your genes. That's a ghost lineage. Imagine all the African music from Puerto Rico that's still retained and people don't speak about, like bomba with its 30 different rhythmic variations, and still retained as other drum, where the drum was stripped from people here. That's another
warrior music
ghost lineage. Imagine all them people that passed and perished during the pandemic and never got to speak their truth. That's a ghost lineage. Imagine gentrification taking away everything else, and all these developments building up, and a place like Indio's has to be sold, and no one knows what actually transpired there in those moments of the Puerto Rican community, except for us and through our music. That's another ghost lineage. Or these towns that are being, are gone or whatever, and all you hear is the remnants of the indigenous names that the people that used to populate here, like Weehawken or Sea Caucus or other places with indigenous names that all we know them is for the names. What about the lives and the families that live here, that cultivated crops here, that, had wars here and shit, that put their blood in the soil? Like, they connected to the land for 15, 20,000 years. That's a ghost lineage. And so the album is like, we went and rethought everything, and was like, Static Files was ill, but building off of Reasons was like, how do we now package it to the people in these times, in this struggle. Like, yo, we not going to let our legacy just die because of a pandemic. Because that's when we get stronger. That's when we keep records even out. That's when we come up with more quality creative output. These are the times. And this is what you need. And this is what we need to see where we stand as a group. You know what I'm saying? And that made the BMR glue even stronger.
I was like, yo, Static just sent me beats. We about to do some more stuff.
Yeah. We was getting beats from everywhere.
Just send us beats, bro.
Because we've been, and so, and a lot of the songs, you know what I mean? Especially the stuff that you represent when you say the Renaissance, right? You speaking your truth. The mainstream industry may not want us to speak that truth. So people like us keep those traditions with you yourself, and we operate as a phalanx. And no matter who the fuck is against us, if we strong, they can't. There was I was reading something recently about these individuals, these Sikh warriors. There were only 21 of them, I think. They were at a fort in Afghanistan fighting against like 10,000 Afghani rebels that didn't want them there. And they killed like mad motherfuckers by themselves. They died to the last man, but they died on their sword. You know what I mean? They were strong. That was a real 300. And I think that's what we represent. Even if we got to go out, we're going to go out on our sword. And our story's still going to be told. And if it's not told in on paper, it'll be told in blood, one way or another. You know what I mean?
I hear.
And that's what that whole warrior shit is about. That's why we had to reconfigure ourselves, because we in a world that doesn't want this sound to be out there. I mean, if the universe is against me, I would tell the universe to go suck my dick, and I'll still go harder.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because that's that East Coast attitude. I'm from Jersey City. My family came from New York. I learned from my grandfathers from the Bronx. That's that New York attitude. Go fuck yourself.
Right.
I'm going to get to where I got to go to regardless. And that's also a Puerto Rican attitude, like a New Yorican attitude or a New Jerican, whatever. Go fuck yourself. You don't like us? Who gives a fuck? We gonna like us more than anybody else, but without losing ourselves in the process of liking ourselves. You know what I'm saying? So it's a lot of shit to unpack, baby.
That is powerful. No, it's fucking powerful. Fucking amped up right now. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have my weapons with me now. Yeah. But
I mean, it was fitting that T put you on the record because we are of the same vein. I mean, Teak was born right around the corner from where we at right now. You know what I mean? So we come in full circle to where his roots are from. You know what I mean? So
when you first interviewed us, the way he was talking though, like when in the interview, he gave us the most amazing intro I've ever heard. And I was like, yo, we gotta at least get him as an interlude on the album, something. Like, and I kept pressing that, like, yo, I think we should get him, bro. Then I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna just hit him up. Like, let's see if he can do it. And then what you came back with was amazing. So I'm like, all right, cool. He did that. Let me get my dude Ben, play some keys over it. He played a couple different ways. I picked the one that I liked. He mixed it. Bang. We got what we got. The most amazing shit. The most amazing intro ever.
He's the curator of a lot of I come up with ideas and shit. Like, I came up with an idea for the album. I came up with me and him discussing and conversing evolved the idea of the album organically and shit.
This Ghost Lineage theme.
Yeah. He's the one that made Ghost Lineage what it is. I had already verses that I was writing and shit. I would be the first one to write and put something on a record. Not on all the tracks, but on a lot of tracks, because I was just writing and shit. And then he'll be like, all right, I know what we can do with that. And if he ain't like something, be like, you could do better.
Right.
On 3 Kings, he told me I could do something better. I did. But he built upon that. Then he came up with a person that could sing the chorus to the shit. Then he came up with certain instrumentations. And then he said, yo, you know what? Let me see who I like to be on the record. So our creative process is like, I'll initiate something. He'll follow through with it. And then he's the main person that puts and organizes and fleshes all the stuff together. But it works vice versa. There's sometimes I put a chorus on it. My choruses aren't sing-songy like that. He writes choruses with melodies. he don't sing it himself, but he'll have somebody else. He'll adapt the melody, like you know what I'm saying. So, and then that's how we kind of like feed off each other. That's our creative process, which is how I've been working. 50% organic, 50% organization. But he's the one who knows how to do all the stuff. So when I was, even just to go back, when I was traveling with Immortal Technique extensively and I was going on tour, they was already had like an in-house team that put shit together for me. So I was a little bit privileged. And they say privilege is the mother of all stagnation, right? Didn't somebody say that recently? Rick Ross actually said it.
Word.
So like I did not know.
Entitlement.
Entitlement. I had an entitlement issue because I was not the controller of my creative content. You know what I mean? I was coming up with stuff and I would work in conjunction with Torre and we would make some dope shit, but I didn't know what was going on behind the boards or none of that. While I was doing all this, Teak was learning the boards. He was out there taking care of his family. He had to take care of his family and work and shit. You know, he got kids. I don't got no kids. So he was out there. Fuck it.
The studio's going to be in the crib, in my dining room. Sorry, babe, but this is my room now.
And he learns fast how to do stuff. You know what I mean? It was trial and error because we would do shit mad long and I was like, nah, that shit ain't going to fly right. So Teak be like, all right. You don't say nothing. You just go back in the lab and he keep trying. He keep trying till something comes out where it comes out at. So I noticed like, yo, his engineering prowess got up. We would take shit and we would do shit and it would be like, yo, can you make that beat different? He's like, yeah, because he's a producer too. So he's an engineer, he does producer stuff, and then he's a video editor too. So like there was a time recently where we had a video that we started noticing we had a problem with videographers taking mad turnaround time was wild long. Not that they wasn't whack, but it was. So Teak was like, you know what?
For the Brooklyn Jurors, the dude took mad months. And he was just holding the footage. And I'm like, all right, bro, just send me the footage, B. Like, whatever bread you need, cool. We'll send it to you. Because he was doing it originally for free, but then he just didn't want to send the footage. I'm like, all right, just send the footage. I'll edit that shit. Went, edited that shit. Because before that, I was editing people's videos.
Yeah, he was doing that. He the one-man stop shot. He know how to do all that shit.
Like a good 10 years.
Might as well do.
I was just working on that.
Right,
we had people that did that for us already. Like, I don't produce for BMR, but I'll curate some shit for BMR only because I want to be a rapper in the moment. Like, if he what he doing is writing his verse or writing the chorus, I want to be doing that too. I don't want to worry about what the snare sound like. Yeah. Like, let the producer do that, so we could both be on the same level playing field and shit. But if it's my solo shit or somebody else, I'll produce it for him. I do whatever. But when it's BMR, we gotta be rappers. Like let's be MCs right now, and everything's on a level playing field. But if when it comes to putting a chorus or doing anything else, I have no problem. I'll take a person's beat apart and put it back together.
He did that
with live shit.
He had something. He had something reconstructed from the ground up.
The song's safe. Yeah. Like the dude sold the beat to somebody else, and I was like, all right, cool. He sold the beat. Let me get June to sing these parts over that was like sampled from some like gothic thing. Let Ben play the keys over the organs over on this. Play some slightly different organ. Blah blah blah. Oh, we got our song back. All we needed was that drum that he had. He had a breakbeat drum. Don't worry about that. We can use the same breakbeat.
This whole album was mainly Don Teak's create me adding my input doing that. But once I got my own equipment, I started recording music. Mad like I was going through a creative frenzy, a real CF.
Right.
So he had he already took whatever existing stuff that we had. We added more joints to it. Then he's the one that created. I didn't even know how the track listing was gonna be. He put all that shit together. Right. So that shows the evolution on that side.
Well, we talked about. I'm gonna jump around the album a little bit.
Yeah.
We talked about the intro that I had though, and again, a great honor. You know what I mean? People ask me to do stuff for them, and it's always a great honor and stuff because I don't consider myself an MC, but I do spoken word or
you get busy,
say whatever the fuck I say. You know what I mean? And I think that what I was trying to say, you know, like my mentality is that what you guys represent is that warrior ethos. You know, we don't have that. You know what I mean? And that's how I kept it simple, and I just started thinking about actual facts. That's why I broke down the whole actual. You know what I mean?
Yeah, perfect. Wild,
and and then the BMR, because you always say BMR, so I just flip the acronym. Yeah, but this whole idea of lineage, which is really powerful. I want to go to that song Lineage because I also want because unless you heard a lot of people don't ask you about this. You guys. And I'm saying this as an artist myself, you know what I'm saying? There's a lot of stuff that I learned to say about my life, you know what I'm saying? But a lot of times when you teach many youth directly, you have to make sure that what you say about your life, though, has its final conclusion of usefulness.
Yes.
So what happens is I don't say a lot until I've shown that it was useful. So like there were years I taught where I was near homeless. But I never taught that I was homeless while I was homeless. I had to get to a conclusion to show them out of it. You know what I'm saying? It's very difficult to do that. Indeed, you know what I'm saying? Indeed. And when you guys artists, you take up from right at that moment when you're doing stuff. Yeah. You know, I've been in 2 long-term relationships. So my kids, they got the most I could give them. Word. These women, they got the most I could give them. They can't say shit. They got.
Word. You done been like, I put in a bid, yo. I came out with my weight up. What's up?
Yeah. Let's say I scored more than a touchdown with both of them, right? So 2 touchdowns, you know.
I can relate to the homeless shit you were just talking about.
Right? So
I was there for
the thing is, like, you end up
as a kid
at certain things or unemployed and things like that, right? These happen all the years. I've been teaching a long time. You guys spit out your whole life as it's going on, as you're figuring things out, and it has so much effect on me. Lineage, the song Lineage. This kind of musicality that you have is so, you say it's so cavalier. You know what I'm saying? You know, like you just reconstruct songs together though. Yeah. This is what I'm doing. I'm covering artists though. The artists can't do that. You know what I mean? Artists don't do that so well. They take a long time to figure this stuff out. You know what I mean? And I think some is your work, is your ethos, but also have to throw in that lineage, you know what I mean? Because a lot of people don't say, we were talking about bongoceros. Yeah, and you come from a legacy of bongoceros too. Yeah, that's right? Jose Manuel Jr., right, is your father, right?
It's not my father is Jose Manuel. My grandfather's Jose Manuel. right. Keep going and keep going.
He's related to the Manuels.
From the South. For everything, right? But that whole legacy, a lot of people don't know. Jose Manuel Jr. I'm talking about was the bongocero for a lot of great groups, including a lot of the early Lavo records, especially the Willie Colon Lavo records, which are all brilliant. And they're brilliantly played too. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people talk about like, oh, salsa was sloppy and stuff like that, but they had a lot of excellence on those records. You know, because a lot of people don't know those records were recorded not when they thought of the song, but after like a whole year of playing the song. So when they get in the studio, they're experts. So all those great songs like Agua Anila and all of that, they had done those songs all over, because I had talks with Willie Colon back in the 2000s before he went right wing, and
oh shit, I forgot
he blocked me after he saw my name was Allah on the thing. He was like, Sunni's Allah. I was like, yo, but it's me. You know,
that's crazy.
So I was like, oh man, but and I have the proof too of his acknowledgement of my work, and I was just throwing that out there. But that he knew that I understood what he was doing. But they would play all of the hip-hop places. That's why I said it was the first urban genre. So all those places on Jerome Avenue that hip-hop went into, that's where salsa was playing first. You know what I mean? And that's where, like, he would tell me about fist fights they had to go through because, you know, when they had this, like, the album Lo Mato, like, you know, people really were like, yo, y'all really gangster like that? Y'all do it like that? You know, and then they would challenge them because that's, like, as rugged as you get. You know what I mean? Yeah. Just like early rappers, though. They were challenging them if they was talking to gangster shit.
Like,
you know what I mean?
Juanito Alemania, all these joints you talking about.
He had those hardcore songs, so people was like, oh, you really tough like that? You know what I mean?
The energy you put out is what comes to your show.
Right.
I got 2 things to say. Like, the Fanya records at that time, within the 70s. I mean, 70s was a decade where they say statistically, the majority of classic albums came out of New York City in the 70s. Very, everything was just,
incredible.
It's like everybody was taking coke or some shit. So it was mad fast, mad violent. And the sound of that is analogous to what Wu-Tang was when it first came out, you know, where it was just rugged, then it had nothing was clean, it was just real rough, which distinguished salsa from the Cuban dancehall kind of music that came out for the Havana,
very structured,
you know,
song,
this is more like
commercialized mambo and the cha-cha-cha.
So this was all street. And just leading into Don Teek's family line, like the Manguel name, really prominent amongst Afro Boricuas, because you hear a lot of dancers within the bomba community. You know, bomba being the African musical form based in Puerto Rico since the 1700s, meaning originating in Ghana, but you know, incorporating all different types of West and Central African tribal musical customs and shit and sounds. But the Manguel name in south of Puerto Rico, or Ponce, Guayama, Santa Isabel, Salinas, which has its own bomba traditions distinct from the north and Loíza and Santurce and the San Juan Metro, and distinct from bomba of the west, which is where it comes from, really, in Mayagüez. It's something they do totally different, but that his family come from that musical legacy. And the Manguels that you see playing the bongo cero, they transition from that bomba musical traditions to the Afro-Cuban influences that occur within most likely like the 40s, 50s, and then, you know, became the prominent Puerto Rican music when Cuba became communist and they were unable to play their music here. So the Puerto Rican musicians picked up, even though it was a fusion between mambo and jazz with Dizzy Gillespie in New York City, and we just happened to be around. And that's where the transition happened, where the Manguels came here to New York, and most likely, you know, that's where they got that marriage.
You know, exceptional, because Willie Colon's major producer effect on the music is not the jazz element, like the way Eddie Palmieri put it, but it was really the combination of different genres.
And he even put bomba in there, Colombian shit, Panama and shit.
Knowing that Mangual legacy, and then thinking, because the only one I ever got to speak to was Milton Cardona, the conguero, and then his legacy with the Santeria, and knowing all those African rhythms through there. I would say that probably a lot of the introduction he had to many genres to infuse them. Because what Willie Colon did ends up being what salsa sounds like. That infusion is probably being informed by those two drummers. You know what I'm saying? Because I remember my Wu-Tang secret moment was when I met Milton. He was telling me, I said, you know, how come other guys, they have like 4, you know, congas, and you only have 1 on stage? How do you get
that sound?
How do you get the rhythm out of each? You know, because he basically has to tune each part to a different sound.
Just to get it.
So he was like, he basically was like, never teach the Wu-Tang. And he was like, I was like, you know, he was like, you're not getting that shit.
Yo,
like, I was like 20-something years old. He was like, you're not getting that shit from me.
They don't want to tell, you know, like, it's like Kentucky Fried Chicken. They ain't tell you the secret to the sauce.
All he told me was like, listen, I don't got no time to be carrying 4 congas on stage and shit.
He figured it out, though.
Yeah, I mean, that's genius right there. So the amount of like knowledge, you know, of the motherland and the roots that came from the Mangual and that Cardona lineage is just monumental. And I think it informs you because it's something on this album too. You know, you had mentioned it with the thing, and I have it written down all over here. There's just such a special gift that you have, Don Teek, with melody. You know, and I always say that boom bap music, the quality music today, there's so much music. It's like jazz now. You can't listen to it once and really understand it. You know what I mean? There's music like Thelonious Monk where you're like, oh, shit, I do have to hear that again because I don't know what the fuck I just heard. Right? Because this shit, the way he plays. But then there's other people that like, oh, Lee Morgan, that's nice, but it sounds like everything else. No, you got to listen closely to hear what he was doing. And when you hear this Lineage album even deeper, there's so many things that you're doing with choruses and the detail like that is just amazing. You know what I mean? But starting off with that, I'm going to go into those ideas as we later go on, but I really wanted to talk about Lineage first, that song.
I just realized when you was talking about the dude with the drum, that was his version of Serato.
I don't want to carry all the records.
But yo, Sunez, what you say is real. With Don Teek's music, you have to do a lot of studying. It's a lot of layers to it. I mean, you take imagine you take the Manguel legacy and then you put it in Brownsville, Brooklyn.
Right.
And then you get what you get.
People are saying like this Ghost Lineage album has so much depth to it. Talking about this Lineage song and what you guys spilled out here. CF, you started it off. I wrote here the double time, breathless flow, only few humans can do, because I don't have time to figure out who the other humans are that could actually do this. You know what I mean? And spelling out really that whole warrior ethos that you had this last year that you were sharing with us. Not that you found, but that you were sharing with us. You know what I mean? And you had those intimate bars about breaking that family curse. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because you know, it was a built. The whole Ghost Lineage idea also was a built from the Reason song, which dealt with, you know what I'm saying?
Right, yes.
I found out I couldn't have no kids and some bullshit. I was with some girl. We would have to go through IVF. She didn't want to do none of that bullshit. So I built more about reanalyzing legacy. What is legacy about? For men, it's about having progeny, you know what I mean? Having children.
Mm-hmm.
What if you can't? You have to do it through music or in song and shit like that. So my name is, I'm the third. My father's name Nelson. His father was named Nelson. Either 3 times the charm or 3 strikes you out. Or you break that curse. Because my father's father was not present for his family. Neither was his father or my father present for my family and shit like that. So you know what I mean? It's like, well, I didn't have no kids to actually do that too. So I broke that kind of curse in some sort of way. 3 times a charm or 3 strikes you out. Right. But still, it's the in depth or reflective of imagine like, you know, there being 3 and the buck stops here type shit. Or you can change what they did and reverse all that through song and tell other people don't be like that. Right. Be a better Nelson and shit. So that's kind of what it took in my verse. And Dantique's verse was talking about something even way iller.
You know, like, and like, you know, I'm being honest here, because like, I call, like, a lot of people don't know this, because we're talking about salsa a lot and other kinds of things like that, right? A lot of people know that one of the most hip hop things I've done, nobody does. And in my life covering hip hop and doing hip hop, I had to do most of my work in hip hop, because I was saying this was an element if I do it creatively. Since 1995, I published that in a school newspaper in Baruch. And nobody was letting me actually try it. You know what I'm saying? So like, it's like almost if you have a song and no one lets you record it for like years and years. This is really what I'm doing.
That's crazy.
Because there are no other forms. It's not like I could go and just write it on a paper and here's my magazine, buy it. Like, it's not like that. And trust me, people, if people know that I have sequestered lots of funds to make my own magazines in the craziest ways to try to do that. But over the years, when I felt the 2000s were the dark ages because of the way the media covered hip hop, the way it didn't cover it properly. And part of my life as a journalist was in that. And I felt I would be as much more hip hop if I dug in the crates. You know what I'm saying? That's hip hop, and that's what I was doing. And what I love and I thought was powerful was that, like, the legacy that you come from is such a rich legacy, but you weren't afraid to go down that dark well either. You know,
only for the simple fact that legacy wasn't in my face. I grew up in the black side of my family. Like my pops would take me to the Bronx to see his family here and there. My Spanish is only work Spanish. I talk to you about stuff at work. My Spanish ain't great at all.
Right.
So I grew up on Sutter Ave with my mother's family. So it's just, I'm looking at it from the outside in. Like, oh, these are my people. Oh, these are my family. When we go over to their house, everybody got a conga. Somebody got a shaker. They doing songs and getting busy. I'm like, okay, this is what we eating octopus. Like, but then I go back to the hood where we eating the regular fried chicken, not the rice with the sofrito in it.
Right. No sofrito in it.
So I grew up just listening to that same way him listen to the radio, checking the dials. I was the kid that we had cable, but we didn't have cable. I was tinkering. I was tinkering in the back of the TV, just tinkering, figuring shit out. My grandmother was like, "Ooh, he's a genius." Yeah. So that
you rock the HDMI today, they'd be like, "Yo, you shit."
Indeed, like I was just curious about all that, and I would sit and listen to everything hip hop, and it wasn't like my parents was like my father's a hustler, so he was just out getting it and bringing it back. My mom's was like into books heavy. So she that's where I got the being into books thing, and then my pops would take me to all the rock steady stuff, and he would just take me everywhere. I would be in clubs as a kid, like house clubs, all of that, and as a kid, and he'd be like, "Yeah, he's with me. He's with me because he's selling everything." Pharmaceuticals to whoever, they don't care. Like, oh yeah, you can come in with the kid. Like,
his father's a true New Yorker in the essence of hustling to get himself.
But as far as the lineage song, like I said, Mama's only child, man. I guess I shut down shop because she couldn't have kids after me. And then all the things about like my grandfather saying, "Nah, I'm gonna give you a car if you abort. Like if you good." Like, but my parents talked because they had me when they was 15, so they talked to me like I was their friend. Like they told me everything about everything. Like, oh, we're doing this right now. Oh, we gotta move and they also had me when they was 15, so we got kicked out a lot. So I was the kid that always had to pack up real fast. So anytime I had any extra or some fly polo or something, that it got lost in the wind. We had to grab what we had to grab. So if you hear me talking about any of that, that was my life, B. Like I tried my best not to have my kids move around everywhere because I lived in Virginia for 2 years. I went to 4 schools in Virginia.
Wow.
Like
that's a lot. Yeah.
That's just 2 years of my life. Like we lived in so many places in Jersey. Like it's ridiculous. Like everywhere in Jersey, I damn near lived. As far as like from Irvington, Montclair, Jersey City, Newark. Like a kid shouldn't have to be everywhere. All that, but that's just me adapting and learning other people. So that was my version of going on tour.
Powerful songs though, you know what I mean? And the storytelling, all these things in this album. But I want to go back to track 2. You made a video for it, 3 Kings Day. Indeed. You know, you had said you had to write it over again, CF.
Yeah, I wrote my verse over too.
And when you wrote that over, because when I listen to songs with you, a lot of times I listen to your verses though, and I try to find out where a mortal would take a breath. You know what I mean? Yeah. And there were parts where like I was like, oh, you know, a regular MC would take a breath right there, like he could recoup there and stuff.
This guy.
That verse is so much fun to listen to because it has it doesn't lose its swing. That's the problem though. A lot of people can achieve a breathless flow, it loses the swing, you know, it doesn't have any flow to it, like it doesn't have any groove. And so the song gets a little boring. Or that verse has killed the song for anybody else to go on it because it's like, what a workout. You know what I'm saying? The song becomes more like an exercise.
And
for example, like a Coltrane. Oh, he just played 20 minutes. Who wants to go after that? You know what I mean?
Like going
it's
on
not
after
really
Dave
a song.
Chappelle.
It's not a song anymore. Right? It's not a song anymore. It's just a athletic exercise, which is dope. But the way you did that, 3 Kings Day with that massive breath control. Then you came after. It just has that flow, and it sounds like a real song. It just works really great. You know what I mean? And I'm really not saying that for you two guys. I'm saying that for the listeners.
Hey,
like when they listen to it and they see what I'm hearing with this stuff. And then popping, it's a totally different type of athletics. You know what I mean? The way that you guys are flowing back and forth. You know what I mean? I didn't realize how short the song was until I was looking at the credits, when I was going through it. And I was like, wow, this song is only a minute and 40 seconds. You know what I mean? And you do a lot of interesting athletics on it too with the wordplay, CF, because you were doing the static selector thing, but it was not used like static selector. Like, so the wordplay is not the wordplay that you're thinking because it's not static selector beats. It's static.
Yeah, because there's
static
DJ.
With the beat,
I give you the
but you're giving the static like a selector. I was like, I had to hear that, and I was like, because you weren't stumbling, But what you were saying makes the listener stumble, and it's so dope to listen to as a listener hearing that.
I think that's pretty.
It's like a stumble technique, but with the comprehension.
Yeah.
It's, you know what I'm saying?
I understand.
So the flow doesn't stumble, but when we comprehend it, you stumble.
Yeah, you got to catch yourself
right.
for a second.
Yeah,
Word,
so it has like a stutter in the mind. It was just a fun verse to listen to.
That one line that you get to, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm really proud that a person like DJ Static, and no disrespect to Static Selector, but
sure,
DJ Static, who I know personally and travel the world with, and know that he's a true, person to his word or whatever. He's also from Ghana, and Bomba came from Ghana, so it's kind of like a 360 situation. But also we learn our shit from folkloric music, like the people that play like the Afro-Caribbean folkloric musics. Sometimes the song might be real subtle, and it'll be like real short, and you'll be like, what the fuck happened? And that's the way it went. And sometimes it may be long, it may be extra. And there's a lot of like gymnastic. There's beauty and subtlety and shit with BMR that we noticed. We could be extra, but at the same time we don't gotta be like, some people do like all 89 bars, whatever, that's cool. But BMR is more about like, we not about all the bells and whistles to that point. There are bells and whistles, but it's a subtlety to it, because the take that we do with music is more like folklorists preserving a tradition and showing you like, oh, this is a style, one style of how things get done, and this is another style how things get done.
And you gotta have fun doing it.
Yeah.
Like when you said 89 bars, when we did Paranoia is like 4 minutes, 30 seconds long, and there's no chorus. We're just rapping, but we're having fun. Like, okay, you said that. All right, I'm gonna say this. Okay, you said that. All right, watch what I'm about to say.
Yeah, we was out doing each other, but you know how people have competition with other people on records. We tend to spar with each other like that. But our take on shit is my perception on BMR and how it translates on record is more like folklorists preserving tradition and showing you like, even if somebody's rocking bomba, I'd be like, we could do Seek Out a Day, we could do Yuba tomorrow, or we could do Gwembe this day, or we do Gracima then, or we'll mix those in our set. You know what I'm saying? So we showing them like there's different styles that we can flex, but at the same time as a educational moment to the audience. Not like, oh, look, I'm because there's some people that are wild flamboyant on record. We're not flamboyant on record like that. You're seeing the process occur, which allows you to be like, oh shit, I could kind of do that too. Because the way we're doing it is in a way that's rather subtle. Again, like, there's beauty and subtlety, and that's part of the BMR brand.
And you rarely ever hear the same flow.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So we keep pride ourselves on that.
That's what makes the record
the beat
so addictive to me. This is such a great record. So we had Poppin', right? And
Poppin' was
and I love that whole verse where it ends with set them back to the androids, back to factory settings. That's just crazy.
We also mentioned reference because the beat is original. It's a typical sample.
Oh yeah, and you flipped the whole
Goes
Ghetto
back
Boys,
to Ghetto Boys. So it's
which
like
was,
it's
Static really flipped that because
killed that shit.
You
That was on his
rarely
beat
see people flip. That's not a flip. That's a flip of a classic sampled song. Like that's a classic. So he took on like the highest level. Highest level of reusing a sample again.
Still made it sound
great.
Because you could mess that up.
Yeah. That's exactly where you would fail.
I want to give the profile on Static as a person, because he would travel the world as a Mortal Techniques primary DJ. At the same time, when people going out to party, he in the room with his Ableton making in his MPC making beats from the hotel, and me and him would get in and I'll freestyle off the beats he making, and that's how we got the vibe, the creative flow. And then on top of that, he worked for like Con Ed. He's a technician or engineer. So he'll have to go back to his regular job too after the tour.
Right.
And still be making beats on his phone. Like this is a difference between someone who's already out there and established and doing shit because, they get in a check and they got to do it and they could take the leisure.
Right.
He doing this when he don't have to do it, or he might not be able to do it and still getting it done. And that's what I admired about his creativity, because I was like, BMR also what adds to the brand and the integrity to it is that we are working class. We all got jobs. You know what I mean? I remember there was a Instagram person that was like, I guess Simone B. That she was like, I would never get with somebody who got a 9 to 5, this, that, and the third.
Right.
And I was like,
B. Simone,
yeah, B. Simone, my bad, whatever.
Yeah.
I think that the America that I envision, right, is an America where people work hard. I mean, aside from the fact that they slaves, decimation of natives, take all of that and put it in context of today. People working hard, like building from the ground up.
That's right.
Even those immigrants that come in here, they not caring about the flash and shit like that. They're like, yo, you know what? In my country, there is no flash, yo. I'm lucky if I could even get where I'm at right now. The appreciation puts value and integrity and quality into it.
They can't flush the toilet paper.
Right. And that's the type of effort we put into our music. I work 2 jobs. I was doing stagehand. I got my regular job working at the Hudson County Register's office where I'm a map technician. I got my other joint where I'm working at as a stagehand, setting up in camps for the Afghani refugees at Fort Dix and shit like that. You know what I'm saying? I gotta come home tired as hell, but at the same time, I gotta scribe a verse. The fans are getting us pushing to the ultimate. They're getting the best of us because we trying to squeeze something out when we don't have the time to. There's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears and money that we putting into shit. So when we really appreciate the culture, we really appreciate it. There's no narcissism here. We ain't part of the circus. What you hearing is real music from real people that work real jobs like yourself. And DJ Static is that same stuff.
Salute to Static, man.
We represent, BMR represents the working class. And a lot of the songs, when you hear that rhetoric, the reason why it resonates with people such as yourself and other people from the city that make this shit go, like the people that work at the MTA or the people that work at Con Ed or the people that work at the Path or Port Authority or whatever work we doing, stagehand, event industry, is because these are people that we do music for. The doorman, we doing music for him. The people that gotta go in through the poverty door, we doing music for them.
People that's cleaning,
we doing music for them.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? So
and these lyrics are great. The cleverness of the lyrics. I just want, because I had said too, Dante, when you said these time capsules, how we get vetted ahead by light years. Funny how the ones you slept on turn into nightmares. I mean, that's just clever.
Yo, and just saying, like, imagine time that how we get vetted. Time he going all the way, like we already been
that's
there.
the music,
right?
The time capsules are the music. Like if you keep going back to see what we did like 10 years ago, those are the time capsules that you're gonna vet us off of.
Right. I mean,
just a little wordplay.
Album, the more you listen to it, the more it rewards you. You know what I'm saying? Legends never die. You know what I mean? By the way, I never heard Shabam. I don't know. I didn't tell him this, but like his voice sounds so gruff on this.
Yeah, he was
right?
going.
Yeah.
He was going,
Yeah, that's interesting with Shabam Sadiq.
Cool brother.
Shabam Sadiq is from Brooklyn, but he lived in Jersey City as well. So
he went to high school there.
Yeah, so he already, like, you know what I mean? We had that kind of connection automatically.
Okay.
Teak is the one that organized
Indeed,
that record to get on there, and
Thank you so much, brother, for putting
again,
that.
Yeah,
he's the brother.
We gonna do a video for that too. Shabam Sadiq is a legend, obviously in the game since Raucous, since in the '90s, and we've been around since the '90s. We just never really, got the exposure. But on that record, it's really a tribute to the people that passed through COVID during that. Because look at I think I mentioned about how Fred the Godson not here, but like Tekashi still would be going on, and it kind of tells you like integrity sometimes is not based on the flash you got. You know what I mean? Because Genghis Khan had 30 million descendants, but Jesus Christ, they claim, had no children but had billions of followers. You understand? There's a distinction there. There's a difference. And so when I was looking at it, it was a question that I was asking myself: how does someone like a Tekashi, not that I'm mad at him or whatever, but I was just thinking like he's out here with what he's doing, and then a guy who's so dope, you know what I mean, and had much more to offer, I guess, to the culture specifically, ends up dying because of a plague and shit like that. And the realism in that and the duality and how you balance that and like showing you like, yo, sometimes, you know what? The winners don't make it in real life, but their legacy will live on because of people like us. When the world is celebrating this, it's these people that get celebrated later and exalted later, after the smoke clears, after we find out and determine what is the truth and what isn't. You know what I'm saying? So that's one of those.
That whole song was built off his verse, because in the beginning it was just the beat, his verse, and at the end of his verse he said, "Legends never die." Legends never die, motherfucker. And I was like, okay, so
it was
what,
a powerful
what
verse,
else could the chorus be but that? And then you also, as far as a feature, had to have a legend on there. So Shabam Sadiq.
And we was talking about, like, you know, you probably down with the chick that snitched on Emmett Till. Like, I'm telling y'all, like, oh, y'all roll with that type of vibe. Like, when that chick was saying shit, people believed her. Now they found out it was false. And the last legacy of that is Emmett Till in a casket with his face deformed and shit because of a lie.
Right.
And you probably would have been down with that because y'all already feeding into the bullshit as it's coming out in at that moment, but not seeing what's gonna happen with the future, what the real outcome of the situation is. Cause you jumping on whatever's being said at the moment. So a lot of things is like, give it some time, wait things out before we could see exactly where the fuck we at. People jump on whole shit. Oh, vaxxers are wrong. Or people say this, that, and the third. Or even on the other shit, they'd be like, the plague, this, that, and the third. You know what I mean? We don't know. Like, wait your shit out. Life is about waiting shit out. See shit, go through shit. And in this, in itself, is that. But the more interesting stuff, it goes in the second verse. Dante talks about how he went through growing up when they would be in Brownsville, Brooklyn, and they would ride through Harlem, like on Fashion Week or whatever they had over there, Harlem Week, and rob motherfuckers. Yeah. And he was going through gladiator school, learning how to become the person that he became in that time, like traveling on an iron horse and giving you the perspective of a modern day warrior, going from one warrior, like, you know, the movie Warriors, like that. But he'll elaborate further on that.
There's two brothers. I grew up with D-Seps, and my brother Screw, my brother D, they kept me on the right path as far as do this, don't do this, do that, don't do this. And at the end, I had to represent for them, because I can almost guarantee that there's no MC that's representing for them. They passed away. So I was saying, let the horns blow so the legacy can live on through your kids, because they got kids. Both of their kids do music, and those was my OGs. I was like, yo, at some point, I'd like to articulate it. It took a minute, but I'm glad it took a minute so I could say it the right way. Like, I wanted to say something about them years ago in verses. Yeah. And it's like, nah, it's not the right time. I got to be able to, after you hear the beat and heard what he said, there was no other way I could go. I gotta talk about
now,
legends in my life.
Right.
Like, word up.
And the way how he broke that down, and because he told me about that. He would tell me about what they would do in Harlem and you know, how they would. And me from Jersey City, we think of it a different way, you know what I mean? Because we living on the other side. Where Brooklyn is at, to the east of Manhattan, Jersey City's to the west of Manhattan. So it's like a total two parallel worlds, similar in styles, but still different kind of ideas. So he gave me insight more into the borough shit, because we saw it from a whole different way. You know what I mean? So
going to Harlem Week, we used to go to Harlem Week to chill, but it would never just be chill, because it would be too many of us, and it would be something going, and we drinking. But I was like maybe 12, 13, rolling with 16, 17-year-old D-Seps. And they was wildin'. Rumble, all of them was there. Like, I got a picture on my Instagram of one of those nights. Where, like, as soon as we got off the train, it was like Royal Rumble. It got wild real because they looking like, ooh, the Brooklyn dudes is coming.
And
tuck your chain, bro.
And he out there telling the you know what I mean? He's out there showing you what the real shit is about. When T rep that love and loyalty stuff, or when he talk about like the polo stuff, because I'm in it through him, really. You know what I mean? I couldn't afford no polo and shit till he came across the water. We was rocking that, but he was more into that. He was really into that culture because he's from it. You know how people be like love and loyalty and they all the way somewhere else, or D-Sep shit. He was in it because he's from Brownsville on East 98 and out there he in the shit where the D-Seps was birthed. So it's way different.
Absolutely.
So he knows the gatekeepers and all that. I was on the outside looking in, so he gave me insight into that whole different world. Even at the young age of 90, when I was like 14, he showed me a whole nother life of what that was, because I went to Brownsville with him on a couple occasions and shit and saw it out there. And you gotta have a pass to go out there at that time, because you get your, you know what I'm saying? It's Brownsville and shit.
Yeah, like who you with?
And I look like TNT like a motherfucker. So you know I was a different motherfucker.
Yo,
but
y'all brought him to my aunt's house. She said, "You brought the police to my house?"
Yo, they slammed the door in my face, son. When they opened the door, he like, yo, I was like, yo, what the fuck, B? I ain't no cop. I'm just a light-skinned Puerto Rican. Now they think I'm Tommy from the Power and shit like that. Whatever, yo. Word up.
They call me Ghost. That's
yo, but yeah, we gotta put that on the record though. We gotta flip that on the record. That'll be a nice ass little shit.
That's funny, man.
That whole the Legends Never Die song is basically about the many people that we know that passed, pre-COVID, post-COVID. Well, really post-COVID, but you know what I mean, within COVID. But at the same time, emphasizing like, yo, shit is crazy, but shit gonna go on, and just wait it out so you could see exactly when the smoke clears that the real ones are going to be repped and the fake ones are going to be exposed. And that's what that shit was about.
Absolutely, yeah. And I definitely appreciate that, because, it's putting that whole reality, the hellish part of it, taking the best part out of it too, to keep going with the Decepts reality, the low lives reality. Because, I'm a low life because of what I did in hip hop.
Indeed.
I've never stolen a piece in my life. You know what I'm saying?
Peace to school. And see, I know they got Ifunas, right?
Yeah, they're from Honduras.
Real warriors. Yeah. Garifunas are the last people that speak the Taino language.
That's right.
Black folks of the only black people in this hemisphere that speak a native language from this hemisphere. The Carib and the Tainos fused together from St. Vincent. And that in itself is an interesting story that there should be a film about. Just like the Seminoles. There's so many beautiful black and brown experiences here that are not being explored.
But that was my
Hollywood
area.
And shit.
My area was everybody.
Yeah.
Like Hondurans, Costa Rican, Jamaican, Panamanian. It was like 3 Puerto Ricans in the 3-block radius where I lived at. I was one of them. Like, so I just mixed it. I blended in with everybody else.
We keep going through this great album. There's this way of telling stories. Q&A. Dante Giverse is like almost like a panoramic view of Hells. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like going around a lot of different things.
Word.
You go through a whole gamut. You know what I mean? To say that question, will this art form get greater or revert back to its infant stages? You know what I mean? There are things that keep me up at night too. Things that I write about. You know what I mean? Like, this is the thesis. You know,
that's so deep, because it shows like there's like, how old people, when you grow, you're like, as you get older, you become like a baby. You back in diapers, you being taken care of. So he's conceptually saying like,
and that really struck me, because a lot of times in those dark ages in the 2000s, people would complain to me and say, why did you, a lot of stuff I wrote that was rejected. And I said, why did you write that? I said, because what they're doing, and I won't say certain people, but what they just made wasn't a homage to the old school. It basically was a reversion, because they don't know how to do it. So, like...
almost a mockery.
Yeah, so they don't know how to actually play it, or they don't know actually how to make a beat. So it sounds like 1981. It's not old school. He actually doesn't know how to use it. You know what I'm saying? So he doesn't use
I
it
got
to
what
this
you
level.
mean. Like,
You get what I'm
it's
saying?
vintage. No, the motherfucker's still using Casio because he don't know
Doesn't
do
know how to
anything
make a
else.
beat,
And it
like,
was easier to make
I'll
beats
use
back
it
then.
in the movie sense, because I don't want to diss anybody right now. I'll do that in my own time. But when you watch Hustle and Flow, which is probably still dissing somebody, but when they make Whoop That Trick, that's exactly what I mean. I thought that movie was a spoof. And it was taken as like a real, like, artistic film.
You know what? I liked it because of the fact that it made it look like anybody could do shit.
But the way that he made that beat in that scene is exactly what I was trying to explain to magazines that they didn't get. I was saying, listen, that guy does not know how to use the machine, and he finally caught a melody. And so they're all blown away.
Word.
And it's like, we're all coming from Puerto Rico. The reggaeton succeeded because of that. In mid-90s, they were rapping out there.
Playero.
But they didn't know how to actually use those drum machines, the depth of it. They didn't know how to sample. And in the mid-90s, it's so much easier to not sample, because remember, you're using reels and all that kind of shit. Oh, fuck it. We're from a party island, and if we just use basic melodies and we use one drum snare. Because remember, it's a genre,
it's the same drum,
subgenre made out of one. Even when you look up literature, like scholarly literature on it. And by the way, for listeners, like there's actually scholarly literature that speaks against me because I'm so anti-reggaeton that they cite me to promote reggaeton. Like,
oh wow,
which they fail anyway. But anyway, the point being. They call the dembow rhythm, the dembow rhythm.
Yeah.
You know,
from DR.
I know. I'm saying it the way scholars say it though.
Oh, okay, wait. Stop saying it the right way.
Yeah, dembow.
Yeah, it's funny.
They call it the dembow rhythm, and
reggaeton.
That's from a Chaba song.
But to make it simpler, they made their own subgenre because they chose the simpler route because they didn't know how to do it. And if you go over there. I remember at the time there were people from Rocksteady and other places like Zulu Nation. They were like, yo, we have to go out to these other places to show them how to do it. But they never really got out there. You know what I mean? And then look at the island that really excelled as far as lyrics. Maybe not content, because a lot of it wasn't really as, they didn't keep up with the revolution, but that's a whole other story. Yeah. But Cuba has the most educated island. And they had the most deepest lyricists rhyming in Spanish. Whereas you got like basic party shit from PR because it was like the money was going in there faster.
I think that
so
it's funny because like
it's totally
you're right what you're saying. How Puerto Rico
totally different, and but yeah, that that's what I think about when I heard that line. It's like a whole thing to so much stuff I've written. But see, if you go into the whole history of Puerto Rico and the whole hurricane, and you bring it up to date to this Puerto Rican reality, and there's always that ethos, which is very rarely in song. There's a lot of great Puerto Rican MCs, but they don't really show that nod to the idea of our independence and our freedom, that we have not attained that yet, that we are still a colony. And things like the hurricane and what happened where 16 deaths are reported and accepted that way when 4,000 plus of our people,
and that the deaths were just brushed off like if they were, initially.
Right, and people, just so listen, like that's not accidental. That's a genocide because when you compare it to islands like Cuba that don't put that care first for property but humanity, they lose very few lives. Like if 2 or 3 people die in Cuba in hurricanes, it's a big problem. 4,000 people in a supposedly taken over country, supposed to be more first world than any of the other Caribbean countries, and 4,000 people die. Something was done or mishandled grossly, like like almost war crime level.
I think that
for that to happen, you know what I mean? It's a genocidal level,
and it was glossed over in a large majority of those deaths most likely are elderly folks who just didn't have access to like their dialysis machines and things of that nature. But it shows you Puerto Rico's political purgatory situation where it's not identified as either state or not identified as an independent country, and so it lives in that middle where it's like drops from a well, like was mentioned in there. You know what I'm saying? The United States has an abundance of resources, and the resources probably do go into the local populace, but the people that control them are corrupt as fuck as well, because that's still part of the continuum of the Spaniard elite Creoles who the baton was passed to them from Spain. And then even with the United States, with the supervision of like Anglo types and shit like that.
That's right.
Where real people, Puerto Ricans of color, probably never really were able to be in control of their own destiny. So it's like the continuum of colonialism with the Spanish Creole elite at the top, on the back of the rest, and then just add an Anglo father on top of that.
Right.
And it's like, the caste system when the British went over there and they were like, we're just gonna, I see that the Brahmins are at the top, we just put ourselves on top of the Brahmins and this shit look like it worked perfectly for us.
Right.
This is easy. Y'all already got a system in place. We just put ourselves at the top.
Yeah, exactly.
So you know what I mean? When you see what's going on, there's so many different variables that leads Puerto Rico to what it is. But the one thing that's interesting about that island, because of the strong Arawak ancestry and the mixture between black and white, you can see things from 3 million different eyes. And then on top of that, we also have in the middle, we can see things from the Latin American perspective and the United States perspective, with the country moving and demographically within a Hispanic kind of democratic capitalist society. It's gonna almost be Puerto Rico was probably the precursor to what eventually the United States would be in as a whole.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So there's many different things going on there, and all of that can't be explored on just one record.
Oh, absolutely.
So I was trying to just nail it down to like, you know what I mean? What happened if Kanye West would have mentioned those 4,000 lives that was lost, like he was talking to Katrina? You know what I mean? Because those are still people of African descent, part of diaspora that weren't represented or even spoke about in the national narrative. It was like glossed over, even by the president himself. 16 lives, and then tossing towels around and shit like that. Yeah. That was a travesty, because these are still citizens of the United States. It's not like they were from some other country, even though it's a colony. These are people, but they have no representation. And what was this country revolution based on, right? It was about representative government, which it didn't got. And because of that, they decided to become independent from King George and shit and create their own nation.
Right. Yeah, but then you put that on top of a smooth ass beat with a dude singing on it. It's like putting the medicine in the food.
Yeah, you guys do it all the time. There's the heist that ends, with all the goods going to PR.
Oh, yeah.
Bisou's birthday. That was such a fun record to listen to, because it was like Ocean's 12 and shit, like at hyper speed.
Yo, we always wanted to do a robbery record, right? But we didn't want to do it in a way that we had to do it something that brought it 360 back home to our people and shit like that. Right, you know what I mean? So I was like, yo, imagine like we go out there, because, we traveling with Immortal Technique extensively, you pick up on that socialist, capitalistic rhetoric, whatever. It is what it is.
Absolutely,
capitalism is what it is. I believe in it because I buy shit, and I want people to buy my record.
Yeah, we
but you know what I'm saying? But any money I get goes directly back into the product. It's not like I'm taking it and going to buy a fucking Lamborghini on it. Practical capitalism is what we emphasize.
Understood.
Is the emphasis.
Understood.
You know what I mean? Not like, and still in itself. There's a socialist kind of wave with our music, because we represent the labor force in the United States, and because of the fact that we also represent a grassroots movement that's being organized by a community that supports BMR. You know what I'm saying? Because it's not just us, it's people.
Right.
Not him and I. It's a little bit of a movement and shit like that. So both of them are intertwined. A lot of times ideas are intertwined. That's why I'm trying to say, like, Puerto Rico is in the middle of all of that. I even mentioned it, like, saying, in that purgatory between North and South, Puerto Rico, like, we go from extreme poor to Rico. We're in the middle of the Caribbean, of two Latin America and the United States, where you have one representing a certain type of government and another one representing something else. We're in a purgatory on all levels, and being that we're mixed with all different bloods, that we could be ambassadors of the world and shit like that. So it's like all of that is all the complexities in that shit is actually being explored in record on that song by subtle references and shit, because it can't be all in there. It's just like, we're giving you little pieces.
Great about the record, because there's so many cues that you guys add that could lead to research and ideas, and like, who's that and stuff like that.
We're a diverse group of people with diverse ideas. Even within ourselves, within our group, we two distinct individuals. You know what I mean? Dantique has his own mind frame. I have mine, and it translates on record well, because it's a push-pull kind of effect and shit. But you hear it.
There's so much that you guys do with, like, the story scenario. You know what I mean? Let me give you you guys, the ones that I'm thinking about. I had it here a minute. There's so many notes I've written about this album. What song was it? I can't even find it now. But
Miscommunication, I want to know.
I know miscommunication was a very dope one. Definitely the techniques, though, where you like the stuttering and we stutter flow, and it catch the groove, and then you settle.
That was because the beat was doing that.
Right.
Yeah, that was the concept.
Yeah, and
I wanted to do something with the robbery joint, and that joint where Dantique and I were actually going syllable for syllable instead of word for word.
Right.
So I think we did explore some of that.
And the song I was thinking about was Safe. You know what I mean? Where you take that intense tale of scenario on your verse, and then you had the gentrifier tale. And, it just was so well. It was so well told. You know what I mean?
Good looking.
That was shit. I would like to kick that verse right now if I could. Shit.
Yeah, sure.
Midwestern type, see for gentrified places, gated community, make them immune to see the world through the eyes of desensitized natives, claim Semper Fi cause they live inside bases trying to switch up the hood. Look, the Gemini faking in a fort made from wood of Dutch enterprise slave ships. Plus we noble savage with the photographic memory, faced of our enemy, etched in our mind, withstood the test of time since the days of the Lenape. Should I drink the blood and chase it with Hennessy, or change the red rum to holy water, cleanse my spirits of the soul cause it takes too much energy? AR at the colony for the Crown Containment Unit, care after the act to probe the mind that made them do it. In the winter they be hibernating through it in this open air prison, hearts colder than where polar bears living. Let's go. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it's giving a take on modern day kind of colonial settlement,
right,
where people are coming into the hoods where we are now the neo-natives or savages, and some of us are considered noble savages. It's basically like dramatization or reenactment of what occurred then, but now happening through gentrification. So these people are in their forts and their residential communities outside of, not to say that I might not live in one, getting, you know what I'm saying, because I get an apartment with a voucher living in one of these places too, but just by luck. But these people go into there, they want the urban feel, but they want to be in their forts away from the people. And so like they look at them like they're modern day, this is a modern day fort. And then they'll feel like, look, I'm a warrior because I'm around these ghetto types. But
you know, as us black and brown, we have our own realities in our genetics, the warriorship, the oppression, all that. But they also have, you know, when we look at white folk and stuff, whether they're well-meaning or not, they also have to atone or deal with their own genetics that really is, we're talking about epigenetics, like the continuing code of your life getting encoded of a lifestyle of colonization. That makes gentrification very normal for them because that's a legacy that they have. You know what I mean? You know,
I mean, you know,
that's what they know how to do.
I think that
it's in the genetic code, epigenetically fused.
Well, I think there's a history in humanity where one group tries to, you know, for example, when Caesar went and penetrated the Gaulish territories or whatever and overtook them or whatnot, he painted many as savages, even though they were already adjusting to Roman society and emulating Roman ways of life. He just needed to paint them as savages in order to conquer more, to get be financed and get the okay from the Senate and shit like that.
When in reality, he was the one that was being savage.
Yeah, so you know what I'm saying? But also there was at one time the Romans were despised of because of their culture and their civilization, and now look, all of European countries that once hated them and this, that, and the third, under the banner of Christianity and Romanization, became the societies that they are today, and then imposed that back. So there's always human beings doing one and this, that, and the third, and the other. You know what I mean? So that's the greater scheme of things of how humanity works and shit like that. But the telling tale of what we see now is that occurring, but we've already had our Romanization through our own groups. We already had our own things to contribute. We already had our own stuff. And who's to say that those goals didn't have something that was also contributing to the betterment of Western society as opposed to their Romanization as well. So like, I mean, the fusion of these cultures is what kind of makes things, what is better. But if you come into a spot and be like, that's not of value, and I am of value, and I don't want to live next to these people, I want these people out of here. And I'll slowly taking them through means of sophisticated ways, redlining or whatever the fuck, so that I can displace them. And then eventually all you see is statues of them or names of places that they used to call, you know, like a Weehawken or Communipaw. They don't exist, but they have statues of them. Oh, they were very brave lords, noble savages. You know what I'm saying? But in reality, we still here. Like, the majority of Hispanics coming in this country are coming from South Central and Southern North America, whatever they call Mexico and shit like that. And those people have indigenous ancestry, and they have the fusion of the two must be in order for there to be a better country. Because if you continue on that line of European superiority and the rest, and what you're doing is you're going to cause a Spartacus situation. You know what I mean? And I can see the future of this country. It's going to be a blend of Western, but also with indigenous blood, because the population is growing in that direction.
I definitely see that. You know what I mean? It definitely still has the legacy of. We definitely still have. The reality is, you know, we still have that warriorship that is needed. You know, and that's why. Yeah. The way that you guys do stuff, the way that we're all doing stuff, you know, it reminds me of what you said. There's a book I just pulled it now.
I just wanted, my bad. Those forts are like outposts. That's what I'm saying.
Got you.
So they're like outposts around the modern day Lenape.
Right.
The Dutch outposts around modern day Lenape, and that was the kind of image that I was trying to convey in that verse. I think I did that pretty eloquently.
Definitely.
And then Teak said some really interesting shit in his verse, so you already know.
It reminds me of something I just read from a book called Loaded, A Disarming History of the Second Amendment by Roxanne Dunbar Ortiz. She quoted L. Frank Baum, who's known for writing wonderful Wizard of Oz. But he wrote in Aberdeen Saturday Pioneer, after a certain moment, he said, "Our only safety depends upon a total extermination of the Indians. Having wronged them for centuries, we had better, in order to protect our civilization, follow it up by one more wrong and wipe these untamed and untamable creatures from the face of the earth." So people might recognize their devilishment.
That's the fear.
But they're like, let's just finish the shit off. You know, and that's kind of like the reality that we continue to live in. You know what I mean?
That's the same thing they do with
It leads
black
me
people.
to there's so many songs here. I want you guys to talk about one more song before we have to, you know, end the build.
You could talk all the time. You know, shit, I love to explain
there's so many great songs here. Black Ties, A Ski Mask, the AK, I love the AK because this is a great example of what I meant by the way you rhythmically engage here. You know, I've been doing that chorus all week. You know,
word.
I've been going we've been running, trying to be like been in my head all.
We put Aguilar on that
all week. You know what I mean? And
that's a god.
And Aguilar has such a great voice, though. Everything he says sounds good. You know what I mean? And
I knew Aguilar since I was like 13.
Yeah, peace to Aguilar,
years old,
you know
actually.
what I mean? He put me on his album too, so it's like
nice.
He from Brooklyn. He used to live in Jersey City too, so there's a relationship on the album, the continuum,
so
connection between Jersey City and Jersey City
Absolutely.
Specifically, because that's different.
But if the listener, if you're looking for what I meant by that rhythmic, melodic gift, you know, listen to those choruses. That's not easy to do. You know what I mean? And it's just like, it's almost like you fall into the pocket. You know what I mean? Like you just relax into it, you know what I mean? Yeah. And these choruses are great throughout the album and stuff like that. And then there's the dynamically done double time flow in your verse, you know? The music lives on like nuclear cellular pathogens and you know, tweaking the craft with a half
Teak was pretty dope because I thought the beats that we was getting from one dude, my man, what was the Prophet, right?
Prophet.
So he's Prophecy, correct. He was from Alabama by way of Detroit or somewhere out there, Michigan, right? I just met him on IG. And the beats that he was giving us, I was like, you know, these are samba joints, and this is pre-pandemic. But then when the pandemic hit, and the way how we sound on record to it, I'm like, oh shit, this actually falls in line with the feeling and the vibe we want to reflect about, because it's a lot of retrospect beats, like beats that take you time and be like, you know what, I gotta like just take time to look into myself and see how I could be better through this period. And so
he also did Three Kings and Q&A. So that was his vibe that he brings to the table.
Right. Well, let's end, you know, because there's so much great. If you guys, you know, if you listeners don't love this album already, though, I mean, take that moment, take your pause, listen to it, you know. But March, the way you ended the album with March, and there was so many ideas in here. It's almost like a, you know, a manifesto. Dante, you had incredible lines. Psychos and badges are permanent fixtures, but they offended by a nigga not standing for the pledge. You know, little jewels, like the one who filmed it is scarred for it. You know what I mean? The brother that filmed. You know what I mean? Eric Garner, which is where I rest now. Like I rest in Staten. So so I passed that because it's Bay Street. Like that's the strip. You know.
I love that. So
and the manifesto statements you had, and then the tale you had about two protesters and how it was. You made like a whole Romeo and Juliet kind of thing. But with the protest thing, it was just crazy.
I think
to end the album.
I think that the story. I read a book that I got from the street and shit. That because these yuppies my area is wild gentrified, so these yuppies have like books out there, and I picked up a book, and it was called The Golden House by Salman Rushdie. And in the book, there was a side character who was supposed to be what Trump was, and Trump was portrayed as the Joker. The person that just a Heath Ledger kind of this, that, and the third. So I mentioned in the song, I started to explore that idea of if Trump is the Joker and wants to see the world burn, which Joker are we dealing with? And there are no heroes, you know what I mean? Everybody's a Batman, but now it ain't about the Batman. When you voting, it's about who's the better Joker. So is it your Joaquin Phoenix Joker? Is it your Jack Nicholson Joker? Or is it your Heath Ledger Joker? Like, what Joker do you want? Because that's the only thing you're going to get. It don't matter who you vote for. It's whoever plays the better Joker. So I brought it into that whole Gotham feel, and because that's how it felt like when we were going through that. Remember, crime was crazy, all that shit. The city was, and it still is, on another level. And then I started going deeper into like, all right, we in this uncertainty. There's a lot of ambiguity. We know that you gotta just choose from the lesser of two evils, because all you getting is evil from all around this Gotham. And then to look further, there's a love story between these two people, but the one guy doesn't necessarily want to involve himself in a political situation. He's doing it for the girl that he loves. Even they said if they get sick, well, shit, that'll be better for him, because then he could quarantine with her, because that's what he wants to do. He wants to get close to her, but she's really proactive in the movement. She is really about that life. So then they go to a protest, and she takes a something from a Proud Boy. She snatches a tiki torch from them, and then she goes to try to burn down like a gas station or whatever, a convenience store. And he's like, the one of the guys, one of the Proud Boys, a son or police, whatever, they got a gun and they going to shoot for her, but he jumps in the way and he takes the bullet for her. But he's not doing it for the movement. He's doing it for love. And in reality, it all comes down to like love is really what this whole shit is about. It's about love.
And the song is like in the beginning stages of the song, me and him both went to a Black Lives Matter rally.
Yeah.
But he was on one side with people, and I was with my wife and my daughter on the other side, because I'm like, yo, we're going to stand over. I got my 10-year, maybe 11-year-old daughter at the time with me. We're going to be over here because we can get out this way.
You need
I'm with my baby. If anybody start running, I'm watching people do stupid shit. Some dude had a turban on. He kept yelling while the people were talking on the microphones. Like he had like a megaphone yelling while people talking on the microphones.
People
and there's police everywhere, like undercover police, just sitting around. You can see him because there's a bulgy over here, and you could tell who's who. They got the baseball jerseys on,
and I already
and it's like, all right, cool, we here. And I'm like, all right, so I started filming a couple things, and the we can't breathe. All that stuff is in there from that day. Like
okay, so
when it goes off, that says we can't breathe.
Your recordings.
Yes,
it was
from my phone.
Just taken from.
I got it from my IG.
Okay,
because the ill shit is that about that that event, because of these protests. You know what I mean? Because I was out there. And I knew that caused me some political slack in Jersey City. We recently were supposed to have some performance, and I know like the people are tied into Blue Lives Matter, and I know that was going to, in some sort of way, come to bite me in the ass, because I ally myself with I stand with what the black community is doing, with what's the right side of history. And because of that, you know what I mean, I know it's going to be some, especially us as artists in a gentrified area. They might not let any of that rhetoric fly. You know what I mean? It's Jersey City is like a small little place compared to the shit we talking about, maybe even beyond their scope of understanding. So I already knew there was going to be some flack for that, but
it is what it is. We're gonna make that music.
We gonna do that shit. That's another thing what BMR stands for. We not sucking no dick to get anywhere. Like if you don't want to fuck with us, even some people on the left, like you already know, they poverty pimping, they doing some other shit.
Absolutely.
I'm not on that shit either. So you know what I mean? That BMR stands for some shit that is gonna be integrity you know what? And whatever we do.
Such a powerful album, such songs, real songwriting. I'm just honored to be on this album, you know what I'm saying? And I'm glad that I,
thanks for being on.
Did my best to put my best pen on it, because you guys really killed it. billionmanrebellion.bandcamp.com. You could follow Billion Man Rebellion on the Instagram. You could follow Don Teak. It's just, if I'm correct, it's just Don Teak.
Don Teak 3.
Don Teak 3 and then CF201, right?
Yes.
Correct. And we got www.billionmanrebellion.com. We in the process of updating all our content.
Okay, so we got all the places though. And go on the Instagram. Let them know what you think. Ask them questions. You know what I mean? Ask them questions. They're men of the people.
And our YouTube, Billion Man Rebellion. You can hit us
Absolutely.
up.
They got videos out. 3 Kings.
Go subscribe. Go
subscribe. We got to get our subscription up. I mean,
a lot of great visuals. And these aren't like just cheap videos. These are high quality, man.
Thanks,
it's high quality. The 3 Kings video looked great. It looked great.
We crashed the parade.
We went through mad trial and error with video. We went through trial and error with everything else in order for us to get the most perfect product out to the people that think we deserve it the most.
This is great stuff. You brothers, I consider you brothers upper top tier, and inspirational to me. You know what I mean? And that's why I got so much love for y'all. So we are done. So until next time, there'll be a lot more stories to tell, writings to recite, and records to rewind and reminisce. For my guests, Don Teak and CF, the warriors that comprise Billion Man Rebellion, I'm your host, Sunyaz Allah, a.k.a. Skillustrator Low. And as always, the Power Right Show is a never respect fake broadcast. Peace.
Peace.